I moved my attention away from myself to my surrounding. I noticed that aside that pot of oil, we generated very little damage to the circle around us. Even though the sand beneath us bore signs of highly vigorous activities, the only remarkable damage we did was on the fire stand. The tall guy was still bleeding from the nose and still holding the side of his chin. I must have punched him really bad, which was exactly what I intended. I also noticed how calm he had suddenly become, speaking quite gently to the man that was standing next to him. A total stranger could swear from his gestures that he is innocent of this whole thing. Unfortunately, the man he was talking to paid him very little attention. The short guy, on the other hand, hasn't stood up from where he was lying. He wasn't talking to anyone. He just lay there, gulping air into his system. The 5 men around us now had grown to a mix of people. There were at least 14 people now, including a handful of children and women. Just as is usual in the aftermath of fights, people must gather to gist about what happened. I could hear some of the new persons that just joined the crowd asking who the fighters are. While some persons were pointing us out to them, others were already narrating how great a fight it was. If not for the pain that I was now feeling well on my leg, I swore I could have laughed on how the young girl standing behind the bench I was sitting on was already twisting and modifying the fight that I myself was involved in. "This one," she gestured a finger momentarily at me. "This one, beat those 2 boys way dey for ground." "Eh?" The guy she was narrating to exclaimed. "See him beat that other boy wey dey lie down for floor, come carry am throw inside that marital groundnut oil. And e dey like say that oil still dey boil as him throw am. Jesus, this one na burning o." "No be only that one sef. See that other guy wey dey sidon for sand. I hear say him beat that one sotey him faint, then come dey pour am water. People strong o." "Wetin come cause the fight now?" He asked the question nearly absently while taking stock of the 2 guys the girl just pointed out to him. "Dey like say na all these frat boys." While this her narration loosely held my attention a bit, I took note of her last word. If some persons here actually thought in line with what the girl mentioned last, then that possibly explains why we fought for nearly 10 minutes and no one dared to interfere. Somehow, the idea of Rita was beginning to seep back into my head. I thought of what she'd make of the whole fight. A bit of me felt proud somehow, but there are certain realities that I'll now have to confront. For starters, she doesn't even know who I am, and what an incredible way to make a first impression, or hopefully second impression. I assume she'd only be seeing me as one of those boys that fought in her mother's place, or worse, one of those frat boys. I managed to capture her name, but she may never know mine. I had earlier resolved I may never walk this road again. However, the context has changed, and I, with more certainty now, knew I indeed will never walk this road again. I may have won this clash with other admirers, but perhaps in a way that doesn't make it right for her. It is said that you don't have to fight to win a lady's attention. Well, literally, physically. Then again, my mind assured me that this fight was not about her. It never was. But it was for me as a man, for my name, and for the perception of me. However, the damages persist, reputation-wise, perhaps. There is little chance anyone could care about what caused the fight, as much as they care about telling a story that some frat guys were seen fighting. After all, Most people just want to tell and listen to enticing stories without much thought to the accuracy or even genesis of it. So yeah, the most interesting part of the scene we created is most likely the part that would spoil my person.
Ah, boys.
An elderly man that I had not noticed before had appeared. Speaking of damages, I was about to learn another damage that will require immediate attention. Somehow, it seemed most of the people that came out had diffused behind the elderly man. The other two guys I fought with were together now and had managed to sit on a bench next to me.
To fight no be problem.
The old man continued through the moderate silence.
After all, young boys must fight. But sometimes wetin dey follow the fight na there problem dey comot.
A number of voices behind him concurred to the seemingly wise words. I do not know about the other guys, but I braced myself for the obvious.
This place where una fight na person business. Una don scatter her market for this night, pursue some customers wey suppose come buy akara. Like say that one no do, una still scatter the place where she dey fry the akara. Come still pour all the oil wey the woman dey use do business. Ah!
The man paused for a moment to let the murmuring in the background grow a bit louder, much to our hearing and to back up what he'd be announcing next.
We and the woman fit no too mind the customers wey una pursue. Those ones go fit still come back. But her oil wey una pour, that one, as una don hear the people talk, una go pay for am.
The choruses of yeses I heard from the background was enough to tell me that pay I must. I did a quick mental estimation of the quantity of oil that I had wasted and clocked it around 7 liters. Not bad, I thought to myself. Then the old man continued.
And so, from wetin everybody don see here, una don throway reach 5 gallons of oil.
I took a shocking look at the man's face and, even though it was not a fully illuminated night, I could see the obvious exaggeration and lie written all over his face. 5 gallons? I heard myself blurt out silently. I instantly clocked it at about 20 liters. Jesus! I took a quick glance at where the other two were seated and saw the bewilderment on their faces too. And for the first time since the end of the fight, our eyes locked in utter confusion. Oga, the short guy began.
Me I no get money o. You don see say no be me carry myself throw for the oil. Na the guy wey dey beat everybody suppose dey answer for that one. Everybody see wetin happen for this place. No sabi this guy. He just come here begin punch my guy. No sabi am before. So oga, na him suppose pay for anything wey spoil.
Truly, I paid very little attention to what the short guy was saying. I was still trying to figure how barely 7 liters of oil miraculously turned to 20 liters. The most shocking part being the number of backings the old man got from the crowd. As the murmuring continued, and I mostly kept mute waiting for the money value of this lie, I observed Rita approach her mom and started telling her something briskly. As she did, she pointed intermittently at where the two guys and I were seated. Whatever she was telling her mom somehow was important to the decision at hand, as seconds after she was done, her mom pulled the old man aside and whispered something to him. The old man, at first, was hesitant to accede to whatever she was saying. Then, after a few seconds, the man started nodding his head with some more inaudible words. As I watched the two speak, I gradually faded into my thoughts. Here I am, a total stranger in the midst of these strange people, waiting to be told how much debt I owe a woman I have never met before, because I fought two strange guys that tried to insult me for defending a girl I have never met before from their abuse and insults. I wondered if I would have spoken up really had I not picked interest in Rita. A part of me knew the answer to that question. Perhaps I may have spoken up, but not as loudly. Speaking of my interest in Rita, I wondered if there would ever be any chance for me. I may have won the fight, but what impression have I left in her mind? I steered my thoughts away from that to a number of other things I could have been doing with my time now. I could have been eating my dinner now, reading up on my online course, or watching a movie with my phone. Then, in an instant, it struck me. I am yet to recover my phone from the bush where I flung it and my wallet into. Immediately, I became uncomfortable. I looked up at where the old man and Rita's mom were speaking. They both were still standing there with Rita joining them. I didn't care what they were discussing or trying to agree on anymore. I need them to agree on something as quickly as possible. I did a mental guess of what the time could be and placed it at 8:45 p.m. I need to get my phone and my wallet, I told myself. Without thinking, I stood up from where I was seated and made to start heading to the bush. For a moment, I forgot that I was essential to why these people are gathered here and whatever the old man and Rita's mom were still discussing. As I crossed over the bench, two guys appeared before me with a seemingly gentle touch. "Oga, we never finish now, where you dey go?"